took off New Year's week. I took off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay. You was back that Friday?
Yeah, I hate taking the whole week. I'd rather come in on Friday and get back, so I don't have to work on it all weekend. Come in on Friday, get everything like settled, so I know on Monday I'm okay. So I'd rather do that. So that's not bad. Yeah.
But now this is, you guys gonna speak for 5 to 7 minutes, I guess.
John Longson speak, yeah, and then Rick Carter and I are both here if they have county questions, yeah. Rick came to us a year ago from City Hall.
That's right, yeah, I remember Bob fussing at you about it.
Yeah.
But you gotta go, you good.
Well, I get it. Yeah, that's like, oh yeah, you gotta take the good guys when you can get them.
You know, too.
Kevin Busey, who took his place, used to be a Sac County employee. He went somewhere in between. That's who he does right now.
Y'all was switching them up, tag team.
That's what happens. Because what happens is at our level, then at the level you get like your apprentice, if you're in the public sector, you're kind of stuck in retirement, right?
Right.
You're not going private sector.
Not when you get that much time.
And if you're private sector, it's too late to get really a good retirement. Right. So you're stuck private sector. So public sector guys now go in and out of, we kind of switch people around, and private sector guys. But rarely do you have someone cross over.
No, if you do it early. I did it early. I know both sides a little bit.
Yeah, I did 10 years in the private sector and then came to the county. Yeah. I've only had 16 years, so I survived. Otherwise, I'd have been trying to go out at 55. Now you're going 2 years, you got to see. It's like,
Okay, we'll call to order the, what's the date today? The January 14th meeting of the Regional Transit Board. Would the clerk please call the roll and establish a quorum?
Director Budge is marked as being absent. Director Hanson?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Director Howell?
Here.
Director Hume?
Here.
Director Jennings is marked as being absent. Director Miller?
Here.
Director Natoli? Director Chenier?
Here.
Director Cerna? Here. Chair Kennedy?
Here.
And Director Natoli just walked in the door. With that, we have a quorum at 91 votes. This meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel. Tonight's meeting will air on Wednesday, January 16th at 1 p.m. and replayed on Thursday, January 17th at 9 a.m. and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is also closed caption. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker card located at the rear of the room and provide it to me or Adam. Please speak into the microphone and state your name for the record. We would appreciate everyone turning off their cell phones. Thank you.
Thank you, and would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, we have the consent calendar, items 1 through 7, noting you have a speaker on item 5.
Jeffrey Tartagia, number 5.
You want to get up, or you want the microphone, Jeffrey? Okay, one moment.
My concern with item number 5 is 10 years ago, this was a major problem dealing with Los Rios. I am hoping that you have put the emplacement, the tools at Los Rios confirming when these bus passes are being used and when they're not being used. The state required legislation that made it where at the 4th week, you are supposed to confirm whether you are in class. You are supposed to have a procedure right now where monthly you determine whether Los Rios is a valid pass or whether it's being skipped. The reason I bring this up is you have done various pilot programs and you have not reviewed and seen how they are functioning. I'm talking about right now where you're doing with the park and where you've got several others that you've never reviewed. And so I'm hoping that in this one that you at least know whether Los Rios has been actively this last year determining with that, should we say, Los Rios transit card. Because it's still a little sticker that's going on here. And now you're saying for anybody that offers one unit, a 8-week class, that it's possible for them to take that and, use it for the full semester, 5 months.
Thank you. Any other questions, issues? I have no more cards. Is there a motion?
Move consent. Second.
Moved by Director Hume, second by Director Chenier. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Next item, please.
Motion carries at 91 votes. The next item is public addresses the board on matters not on the agenda.
All right, I have a few cards. First, Mike Barnbaum. Mr. Barnbaum, welcome.
Greetings. Thank you, President Kennedy and members of the board. Mike.
Yeah, just get used to it.
Mike Barnbaum. Thank you. And want to wish everyone a happy new year and welcome civil engineer, Folsom City Council member Carrie Howell to the Regional Transit Board. Congratulations. And alternate for the city of Folsom is in the audience today, Mike Klozowski. Welcome to the Regional Transit District Board as the alternate to Folsom. As most of you know, but this might be new, somewhat new information for the Folsom members. By being part of this board, you'll have an opportunity to also serve on some other boards and report what you get back directly to this board. Two of those that I wanted to mention this evening, and I'm being told will be up for some discussion in 2 weeks, will be appointments to the Capitol Corridor Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors and the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors. I'll first speak to the San Joaquin because they're going to have a meeting from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Friday, January 25th, located in the Fresno County Board of Supervisors chambers. This group meets throughout the San Joaquin Valley and covers a corridor stretching from as far south as Bakersfield in Kern County to Sacramento and either Oakland, depending on what train or train slot one is riding. Where the train doesn't go, throughway buses connect in Stockton to the final destination of either Oakland or Sacramento. And in Sacramento, most throughway services continue up to Redding in Shasta County. This group has a lot on the table, especially with service expansion to Sacramento, potential new stations in and around or near Elk Grove, Sacramento City College, Midtown Sacramento, North Sacramento near Railroad Avenue, a location near Elkhorn and Sorrento in Natomas, and potential extensions to the Marysville, Yuba City area. They're also going to be involved with regards to the Bay Area in working closely with the Oakland Athletics and the potential of a Howard Terminal ballpark and service expansion both to Sacramento and Oakland. With the Capitol Corridor, their meeting is February 20th in Suisun City at 10 a.m. And while their service is pretty settled on the number of round trips, there's a lot that they're going through, including a time travel savings timetable change coming up. So if that's something that interests you, something to look forward to at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. David Schwigel.
Yes, you said it. High-speed train. David Schwegel. I'm a certified champion of the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. I'm one of many volunteers promoting this region because, let's face it, it takes a village to promote the most underrated city in California and the second most overlooked region in the nation. 3 items. First off, Pacific Southwest high-speed rail vision. I like to think of Sacramento as the stone that the builders rejected that's about to become the cornerstone, the star of the show for high-speed rail in the Pacific Southwest. The situation is as follows. The High-Speed Rail Authority does not have enough money to get to San Jose. They do have enough money to get here to Sacramento. What that is going to entail is cooperating with the Altamont Corridor Express, and they plan to bring passenger rail service up here by 2020, which is very exciting. And I'm hoping that the powers to be can come together and make high-speed rail a reality here in Sacramento by 2022. Now, keep in mind the station will be in Midtown. It's pretty easy to put an automated people mover to connect the Midtown station to Sacramento Valley Station, the second busiest Amtrak station in the state. Second, if you want some inspiration on light rail funding, pull up King County Executive Dow Constantine's presentation from the High Speed Rail Conference, which took place last September in the Silicon Valley. He spoke specifically about how King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties were able to come together and pass a $54 billion light rail expansion measure, and Sound Transit is the first in the world to make light rail work across a floating bridge. Third and finally, let's talk light rail rolling stock and the case for brand new light rail rolling stock. Siemens had a December to remember. And as we know, they have a nice, beautiful mock-up train in the Railroad Museum. Now, if I could only get Siemens at this conference in April to hijack the networking reception the first night of the conference and put us all on one of their beautiful high-speed trains right there in LA Union Station and whiz us up to Palmdale, that would be fantastic. But I really want to encourage us to make the case, work with Siemens, and get the funding in order to get brand new light rail rolling stock. Brand new, state-of-the-art, because our region is feeding the rest of North America while we're starving to death with light rail rolling stock that dates back to 1987. So let's take a long, hard look at the numbers and see what we can do as far as getting brand new, state-of-the-art light rail rolling stock. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Arthur Ketterling.
I've gotten my answers on of what I prior before the board before the meeting started, so I'm fine.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Tartagia.
Jeffrey Tartagia, board members, you have in front of you what I would offer is the best next stop news I have seen put out. This year, it covers a number of things that are changing, a number of things that RT is doing. And the last thing on there is for the, shall we say, museum time that you've got for February 2nd. Please use the source book to find these things out so that Next Stops will be a wonderful document. Planning Committee has, shall we say, been doing a great job with this route optimization. In this weekend of using, there's been a lot of positive feedback of the 15-minute time schedule. There's a lot of riders that have appreciated already, and that's just been in a week that's been going on. This last weekend, and when traveling through there, it was good. Now I will go to the problem. The 31st or 30th, you had a bus shuttle issue that occurred. You had this morning another bus shuttle situation occur. By now, after 2 years, I would presume or like to see that you have figured out some bus shuttle maps, because I will offer to you, and Brett back there, is every time you use a bus shuttle, the Connect card will not take revenue because you do not have a bus shuttle in the system to allow it to be tracked. So every time you run a bus shuttle, you do not collect any revenue. I bring that up to you. I think there should be a better method, and you should have on there a bus shuttle map so you know when you're going from Alkide Flats, where do you go to find it, and then you have, that will let you a Connect card if you check with Roger, because they will know what to do on there. It will be able to be charged on there because you are using the bus system. But as you discover with microtransit, unless there is something in there, the Connect card will not click to do that. Other thing I appreciate, I hope you guys are starting to read your MAC news. It's being emailed to you. I saw it. So you should have seen about the new suggestion of what's going on the Blue Line. Also the other revisions through there. But please address some of the bus problems, address getting the bus stops. The other thing on your mobile app, it still needs help as far as the distinguishing when Connect card has problems on there, when you have the electric signage problems on there, and whatever else. It needs to be improved with the new operation team. I hope these problems can be addressed soon.
By the app, you mean the SAC-RT alert, I take it?
Correct. When you get in there and it says the problem and the things
Got it.
there.
The drop-down box. Yeah.
Drop-down box, you can take a picture, but you cannot go graffiti.
Got it.
Or signifying, hey, what's a high problem, something broke.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item, item number 8, motion extending the term of the current chair Patrick Kennedy and vice chair Steve Hanson for 1 more year as chair and vice chair for the SAC-RT Board of Directors for 2019. And if you need an explanation, I'm here to provide it to you.
Appreciate that.
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions? We have a motion by Director Harris and a second by Director Howell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you very much, Board.
Congratulations.
Motion carries by 91 votes. Next item, item number 9, resolution approving the Second Amendment to the employment agreement with SAC-RT's General Manager, CEO Henry Lee, and Laura Ham is here to present or answer questions.
Good evening, Chair Kennedy and directors. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them, but this amendment is consistent with the board's direction on November 12th.
Correct. Move approval. Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Hanson and a second by Director Hume. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Motion carries at 91 votes. Item number 10, resolution.
And by the way, Mr. Lee, I think that it goes without saying that is a sign of the board's and the public's confidence in what you've done. So thank you. Thank you.
Moving on, item number 10, resolution waiving competitive bidding process and delegating authority to the general manager CEO to execute a contract for structural and roof repairs at 1225 R Street. And this this resolution requires a 4/5 vote approval, which is 80 votes of this board. And Neil Nance is here to present.
Mr. Nance.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy, members of the board. This item is to provide construction services to repair a beam at 1225 R Street above the IT server room. The design is underway. After the design is complete, staff will request multiple quotes. The normal process would take from 90 to 120 days to get this item constructed and repair completed. The staff is requesting that the board waive the competitive bidding process and delegate authority to the GM to execute a contract for the structural repairs.
Okay, are there any questions?
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, moved by Director Harris, second by, I believe it was Natoli.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Next item.
Thanks.
Motion carries at 91 votes. Item number 11, resolution approving the transit portion of the Nexus study for the 2018 update of the Sacramento County Transportation Development Fee Program and approving the Memorandum of Understanding by and between the County of Sacramento and the Sacramento Regional Transit District relating to distribution of transit impact fees. And here to present is James Boyle.
Mr. Boyle.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. James Boyle, I'm the Director of Planning. And tonight, we're here to bring before you an MOU agreement with the County of Sacramento on transportation development impact fees. This is a project that staff has been coordinating and working closely with on the county for close to 2 years now. So a lot of work has gone into this, and I'm excited actually to be here tonight to bring this to you because it's been a long time coming, and it's a good thing for the district and for the county. So I'm not going to go into all the details. They've got a presentation they would like to provide you, but first I would just like to recognize the members of county staff who are here with us tonight. We have Ron Vicari, and John Long is with DKS, and Rick Carter is with the county as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to allow John Long. He's the consultant that's been working with the county as well as RT staff on this project, and he'll take you through a presentation, and then we'll answer questions that you may have afterwards. John?
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, John Long, principal with DKS Associates. I'd just like to briefly go through there it goes. The Sacramento County Transportation Development Fee Program is a program that funds roadway, transit, bicycle, and pedestrian facilities throughout the unincorporated area. The last time it was updated was 2010. There has now been an update that's in progress for 2018, and the reason that the county decided to update is because there was a new general plan in 2011. There were a number of new specific plans that are either approved or in planning. There's increases in construction costs, and the Sacramento RT staff approached the county to say that they wanted to have a different structure for the transit portion of the fee. So I know that most of you are familiar with fee programs that are under the Mitigation Fee Act, and I won't go through this in any detail, but a nexus needs to be established between future development and the use and need for the capital improvements. And what's really important to this is that fees must fund improvements that are needed to accommodate growth and must account for existing deficiencies. So in the case of this type of fee, it couldn't be one that would be funding the replacement of existing buses, but rather for the expansion of the bus fleet to accommodate growth. The development program has a base year of 2017, but it's looking at a horizon year of 2050, a little bit more than 30 years out. And we're using SACOG's regional model to do the analysis for this, which I'll explain. The residential growth is consistent with the rates of growth that SACOG had in their development forecast for 2012 to 2036 in Sacramento County. And we're now looking at 2050, and that allows us to go and assume that all of the major specific plans, which are listed right there, are fully developed by the year 2050. So all of those specific plans in the unincorporated area would be fully implemented under this analysis. The fee program has 6 fee districts. 4 of those, 5 of those are within urban areas, and then there's the rural areas. So there's the rural area is not part of regional transit's service area, so the fee program has to take that into account. Under the current fee program, there are 3 BRT corridors that are fully funded. One on Watt, one on Sunrise, and one on Florin. And that was not something that your staff felt that was as robust as they would like it to be. So they worked with the county to develop a more robust list of projects that would be accommodating growth within the unincorporated area. And this list here is those. It includes the capital cost of the bus route optimization, high bus corridors, which includes both things that the county would implement versus things that regional transit would implement, circulator bus expansion, paratransit expansion, the new bus maintenance facility, enhancements to the Folsom Gold Line, a Horn light rail station, and expansion of the light rail yard.
Okay, we'll pause for just a moment there, Director Cerna.
Thank you. If you can go back to the map, you had a previous slide. I just want to point out that you need to update the city of Sacramento boundaries. You're excluding 577 acres in the northwest area, known as.
That comes from the old fee program map, right, and it isn't about updated for that. This is to show what was in the previous fee program.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So the new program has a series of high bus corridors. There are 9 of them shown on this map. And what the Sacramento County fee program has done is said that there are roadways that are still going to be congested when you go to the maximum number of lanes that are allowed under the general plan. And under the current fee program and the proposed fee program, the emphasis in those corridors is transit, bike, and pedestrian improvements. So the 9 corridors that were selected for high bus are ones that were already on regional transit's list of potential high bus corridors. And they're also ones that have congestion in the future, 2050, and that they would serving the unincorporated area, either totally or the majority of them would be serving the unincorporated area. So the cost estimates were developed for the high bus corridors by the consultant team, estimating the number of stops and stations. We also are looking at queue jumps at congested intersections to maintain the reliability of schedules. And the costs for other transit improvements were provided by regional transit staff based on the capital improvement plan. So the cost allocation process was using the travel demand model. It assumes development throughout to 2050, but also assumes all of the transit system that SACOG has in the 2036 MTP SCS, additional planned bus circulators that would be feeding these new specific plans, and the high bus routes that I just showed you. The cost responsibilities were then based upon the origin destination of riders that would use these new services. So this table here shows summarizes the allocation of the costs for the transit improvements and their allocation. About $408 million of total costs were for this set of projects. $188 million, a little bit less than half of those costs, would be allocated to the unincorporated areas, growth in the unincorporated areas. The other $220 million would be costs that, based on the Nexus analysis, would have to come from other source because they were allocated to ridership and so forth from cities. So the bottom line of this is that the cost per dwelling unit equivalent, which is a single family dwelling unit, and is just over $1,000 for the urban districts, which are districts 1, 4, and 6 on that map I showed before, whereas the rural areas, the cost for those per dwelling unit equivalent is $95. So that's a real brief summary of our analysis. I'd be welcome to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay, we do have one member of the public, and that's Mike Barnbaum.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank John Long for the presentation this evening on the transit impact fee. I see this as another opportunity of transit funding identified to help improve, maintain, and expand the regional transit system. For folks that might not be aware in the audience, but it's been mentioned to the board last year quite often, Sacramento Regional Transit is underfunded. When you take a look at Measure A and Measure A alone, RT is only receiving 1/6 of 1 cent of the Measure A funding for public transportation. And that's not nearly enough to fund, maintain, and expand an urban transportation system. Funding is going to be a crucial topic when you reconvene here in 2 weeks and the SAC-RT Forward team comes back to you with a news and information bit on how that program is going, any updates to the route descriptions that were handed out to the board back on December 10th and last week to the Folsom City Council members. That is also going to be something to look at when discussing transit services. At the forefront, it's going to be funding. So I really like and relish the opportunity of the transit impact fee on this item, and hope that later on in tonight's agenda, you will have an opportunity to hear about potentially a bill that would help local and regional areas to go to their voters with an improved voter threshold, thanks to Assemblywoman Celia Aguiar Curry of Winters. I think that's going to be an exciting opportunity, and that's a little bit of a tease leading to item 12A. In closing, I'll say I will take a look at the route descriptions again and provide between now and the next meeting an email, but a lot of it will focus on funding before any route recommendations are mentioned in the email, so we can have a comprehensive discussion in 2 weeks on whatever item number that will be. But in terms of this item, great presentation, and I'd recommend moving approval of this forward to the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions?
I was just curious.
Yes, Mr.
Something I
Miller.
didn't know, and so I wanted to ask. When these fees are collected, obviously they go to a restricted account at the county. Is that a correct assumption?
Mm-hmm.
How are these paid, and when does it have, does it wait till implementation for these fees to be paid on a specific project?
So the agreement that we've worked out with the county is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, county, the payments would come to RT on a quarterly basis. So the payments would not just sit at the county, that they would be transferred over to RT on a quarterly basis. Semi-annually basis, yes.
And are they restricted just for these specific projects then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Cerna.
Thank you. The last slide there that shows the relative difference in the fee per DUE in the various districts. It's a pretty wide margin between districts 1 through 4, 6, and then 5. And by way of example, can you help explain, for instance, if there were to be, and let's say in the next 10 years, development in what used to be commonly referred to as the boot part of Natomas, which is the area west of El Centro and south of Arena there. they would be, that would fall into District 6. That's $1,004 per dwelling unit. What would those dwelling units, how would they benefit? What transit would they benefit from?
Yeah.
So you're specifically just talking about the area of the boot?
Well, yeah, I'm picking that area just because it's, I understand the difference. I know that part of my district pretty well. In fact, I live in that part of my district. So, while there may be more current development interest, let's say on the east side of 7099 north of Elkhorn, that may ultimately come to fruition sooner, at least be considered for such sooner than the boot. I'm just wondering, how do you reconcile, especially since there's a statutory requirement for Nexus here, that if, again, by way of example, if there were to be a development proposal for that boot area in that part of Natomas tomorrow, and you were to try and explain to property owners or development interests what their cost structure would be, both the fee structure, the totality of that, including this update as well as other fees, how would you explain the benefit that that area would achieve by way of this fee that is more than 10 times that of District 5?
Well, first off, these fees are spread over wider areas than just one specific plan.
No, I
such
understand.
as the boot area or any of the other specific plans.
Sure.
So the usage of the each of these facilities is based upon whether they use any one of them. And for example, the light rail expansion, it was looking at light rail in total and saying, well, how much of it is using light rail from a growth standpoint as opposed to existing uses.
Mm-hmm.
And so that a lot of that is drive to transit. And there is an extension of light rail assumed, at least portions of that, in Natomas under the MTP, SCS. So there would be that component. There would be components. There's, if you look on the high bus map, there is one down Elkhorn that would have some benefit, at least to District 6 in total, as opposed to specifically the boot, because the boot.
Well, that's why I picked that area, because that
right.
From a practical standpoint,
right.
If there were ever to be development there and future residents there, I can guarantee you they're not going to drive 5 miles north to get on a train to go back down to Central Business District.
There were also some shuttles. I call them neighborhood shuttles because that's how they're referred to in what SACOG had done.
Okay.
That was under the circulator bus expansion, that all of the ones that were identified as neighborhood bus shuttles in the MTP SCS, which were actually in the travel demand model that we started with, that there were a certain number of those that were floating through various developed areas, that we just assumed that those were there. So again, it's broader, the way the Nexus is calculated is broader than just individual pieces of a district. It's the districts as a whole. And so
so you feel fairly confident that would stand up to legal scrutiny in terms of any Nexus challenge?
At a district level, it would. If you get down to sub-districts, then you could make arguments.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Hanson, second by Director Howell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Motion carries at 91 votes. Next item, General Manager's Report, item number 12.
Mr. Lee.
Good evening, Chair Kennedy, members of the board, and the public. First, please allow me to formally welcome the newest member of SACRT board, a longtime leader and advocate for regional transit and mobility solutions. Folsom Mayor Carrie Howell.
Thank you.
Welcome. we're very fortunate to welcome Mayor to our board. Also, we're excited to have her alternate to the board, Folsom Council Member Mike Kolnowski.
That's pretty good, Henry.
Mike was elected to Folsom City Council in last November and will surely fill Mayor's shoes admirably should she not be able to attend a future board meeting.
I promise they won't be high heels, Mike.
I would now like to give a very brief update to the board and the public on the Sacramento Riverfront Streetcar project. As you most likely saw in media reports today, last Friday was a critical date for the project as we received bid proposals from 3 construction firms for the construction and the guideway portion of this project. The budget for the construction and the guideway portion was $108 million. Unfortunately, the 3 bids come in between $75 million to $98 million more than the budget. Staff will take time to evaluate the qualifications and the prices to determine why there's such a huge gap between the market bids and the budget. While we are disappointed by the higher bids, we recognize there is a real need for mobility solutions that cross Sacramento River and reduce congestions on our roadways. So we will be waiting for the foot direction from JPA and the 2 cities to say what we should do next. On the bright side, since the board last meeting, the Sacati family has grown bigger. In December, later December, the Central Heights City Council voted to approve an annexation agreement and fully join the Sacati district. I would like to thank then Central Heights Mayor, now is Council Member Stephen Miller, and also Chair Kennedy for a strong leadership. Chair went to Central Heights Council meeting and also Folsom Council meeting. And the next step, we would like to ask him to go to Elk Grove Council meeting in the future. This follows on the heels of the city of Folsom, which approved an annexation agreement in last November, in large part due to the strong support from Mayor Howell and the former RT Director Maureen. Sacati will commence the service of the Stage 9 bus service on February 4th, and the staff from both sides have been working diligently to ensure a smooth transition of the operations. We are setting up a new maintenance facility in the Hazel Light Rail Station to host up to 50 buses to do the maintenance there. So the deadhead miles and hours will be very reasonable. Those buses will not just serve Folsom, they will serve the service in Rancho Cordova areas too. Additionally, contract talks with Elk Grove staff going on very well. Staff working together very diligently and productively, with the goal of reaching agreement to have Sacati operate the E-train bus service, beginning July 1st this year, so less than 6 months now. Greatly thanks to Director Hume's strong leadership and support. We remain optimistic that we can come to terms on a contract for service that would very much be the building blocks for annexation agreement with the city, and that would provide a more and a better mobility solution to Elk Grove citizens, including seamless regional paratransit services. Right now, paratransit customers have to transfer in the between the city and the remaining of the region, which is very inconvenient. The service will be provided by our long-term partner and the RT's paratransit service contractor, Paratransit Inc. We are developing agreement with the Paratransit Inc. for them to provide this service, not just people from city of Elk Grove, also from the people from remaining the other, the whole region to the city of Elk Grove. We're thrilled at the regional collaboration that is elevating our mobility service to new heights. And again, I really want to to thank our board, steady leadership, staff's dedication, dedicated work, and the strong collaboration and the partnership and the teamwork of all our regional partners. More good news in labor relations. Because of the convincing case made by SACRT's labor relation team and the entire RT team over the last 6 months, the operating engineers union, operating engineer local 3 union has decided to withdraw the petition for recognition and representation of a new bargaining unit, primarily consisting of management and staff. A group of more than 66 employees includes everyone not otherwise represented by a labor organization, such as executive management, departmental directors, and other senior staff. We work with operating engineer union and the state of California very closely in the last 6 months, and ultimately our argument prevailed, and the petition was withdrawn by the operating engineer local 3 in December. Not good news affecting SACRT. On December 19th, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal court, issued its final rulings in regards to the ongoing PEPRA lawsuits appeals. The Ninth Circuit Court, after more than 5 years intensive court arguments, they issued a motion to dismiss the case. And with those actions, the PEPRA litigation has come to a conclusion, and the SACRT is now free to pursue the release of a $13 million federal grant that was withheld due to the case uncertainty over the last 5 years. SACRT took a leadership role on behalf of the entire state of California's transit agencies to voluntarily allow the federal government to withhold $30 million grant to us long time ago, and to help on this case. And we eventually prevailed. Staff now working with our federal advocates to have the funds released to the district, and then we will have to pay back the loan to the state, because we got loan from state for that $30 million federal money. And hopefully we can work with state on some good deal, because we sacrificed ourselves. And hopefully, with the support of the board and others, we will be able to get some good deal from that $30 million. We don't have to, if Mark is here, hopefully we don't have to pay back entire $30 million. Lastly, in December, we host over 6 holiday town hall meetings in different locations for SACRT employees. More than 1,000 employees enjoyed hot and delicious meals and received updates on the agency's numerous initiatives. The holiday town halls are a great way to build up morale, encourage team building, and to provide a status report on many of the key projects we are and will be working in 2019. We stopped these practices since 2013 to 2016 because the financial constraint, but the staff repeatedly asked to bring this back. This has been a great morale boosting for the employees of this agency. We are really grateful for the hard work, dedication of our staff. Before I complete my report, we have our federal and state advocates here today, and they will provide update on both the state and the federal government's activities. Let's have our state advocate, Mark Watts, present first, and he will be followed by an update from our federal advocate, Jeff Booth, and his partner, Junior here? Yes, he's here. Okay, great. So they both come from D.C., right? Yeah, okay. So Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I just drove down J Street, so I'm here. Chair Kennedy and board members, I'm pleased that you have me here tonight to talk a little bit about what's been going on legislatively and in the new Newsom administration. Based on guidance from the staff, I'm going to briefly update you on what the governor's been up to with the legislature and some of the implications of the way they're organized, what the implications may be looking forward, and then I'll close with a brief description of some of the legislative proposals that I've been working on with staff to prepare for the next year. So as you know, Governor Newsom was sworn in on the 7th, and he's really taken the reins of the state. He did a great job on the budget overview. I think that's acknowledged by everybody. He also went to Colfax, up near where I live, and did a great job on coming up with ideas and sharing them on wildfires. His other priorities, as he's stated them, are early childhood education, moving towards universal health care, containing higher education costs, forest management, and eliminating private prisons. Strikingly, not much in the way of transportation. I think the feeling in the administration is that was done with SB 1, and the implementation is going well, so why mess with something that's working? His first budget proposal that was shared this week last week, I apologize, had a $144 million general fund expenditure, and with special funds wrapped in, it's over $200 million or $200 billion total, and that's quite a bit. He does continue, and the Department of Finance does continue to fully implement SB 1 with another $4.8 billion allocation for the range of programs that were carried in SB 1. And in an interesting development, the governor's budget does propose a process to have stakeholder sessions to look at the linkage between housing production and possible SB 1 allocations to cities and counties. In other words, there was legislation last year that would have withheld allocations to cities and counties from SB 1. That was set aside until this year it could be discussed, and it's going to try to bridge the issue that some legislators, including last year's author, Senator Wiener, are concerned about the lack of production of affordable and other housing in the state. Key appointments that have been made by the governor. He's got a whole slate in the horseshoe, the governor's office, that's been filled out. But the ones I would point to are Ann O'Leary, who's the chief of staff. And we really welcome back Anna Matasantos, who's the cabinet secretary. She's got a breadth of knowledge that's unsurpassed in the state of California. Jason Elliott is the chief deputy cabinet secretary for the executive branch. Angie Way, who was a top labor advocate in Sacramento, is going to be the policy development deputy. Anthony Williams is coming back from the private sector to head up legislative affairs. and Catherine Lamone is going to be doing legal affairs for the secretary, or for the governor. And as I indicated, there's a whole slate of other slots that have been filled, and there's lots of speculation about some of the remaining cabinet offices and department director offices, but that's quieted down right now, so we'll see how that turns out. He's only been in office for a week, so he can only do so much in that short a time. Legislatively, I think, as you know, on December 3rd, the legislature convened for the opening day of the two-year session. And in that period between December 3rd and now, legislators have introduced more than 300 bills, including several important constitutional amendments. The two leaders have also established their committee chairs and assignments to the committee slots. Before I go into how that breaks down, I just want to make a point. The supermajority that you've read about, which is anything from a 2/3 in each house, which is 54 in the Assembly and 27 in the Assembly, was far exceeded in this last election. And what does that mean operationally? I think really what it means is there are certain instances where the legislature will be able to place measures on the ballot directly without the governor, such as constitutional amendments. And they can also block the ability to referendize certain statutes by using the supermajority to enact bills that would otherwise be eligible for referendizing. So moving forward, the Assembly has 60 Democrats and 20 Republicans. The Senate elected 29 Democrats and 11 Republican positions were available, but 2 vacancies exist. One is Senator Gaines moved to the Board of Equalization, and as well Senator Lara moved to the Insurance Commissioner's position. In terms of committees that are important to transit agencies, the Assembly Transportation Committee continues to be chaired by Chairman Frazier from Solano and Contra Costa County, and the Budget Subcommittee in the Assembly continues to be chaired by Assembly Member Bloom from Santa Monica. And excuse my voice, it keeps getting stretched on these cool evenings. Interestingly, in the Senate, we've had a little bit of a different change. The Senate had been linking both housing and transportation in a single committee chaired by Senator Bell. But for this session, they're going to break that into 2, and Senator Bell will chair the transportation component, while Senator Wiener from San Francisco will chair the housing component. So you'll have 2 separate committees, one by Senator Wiener, one by Senator Bell. Senator Wieckowski continues to chair the Budget Subcommittee number 2, which deals with transportation and resources. And finally, on terms of legislation, before I step into that, I just want to congratulate staff on positioning your organization to participate in the Transportation Development Act review process that's underway. It was requested jointly by the 2 Transportation Committee chairs that CTA convene a task force, and your staff was able to get people placed on that task force, which is going to be very important because TDA is not only just the local LTF fund, which is the quarter-cent sales tax available for transit, it is also the STA allocation formula. So you've got people who are going to be working on that task force moving forward. In terms of legislation that I've been developing and working on with staff to prepare in case you elect to move forward, one item that's been developed is the proposal to reduce the vote requirement for detachment, and that's something that's available to take a look at. That's when an entity wishes to depart, and the bill would reduce it from 80% to 67%. In addition, there's legislation that we've developed on commuter benefits. This takes advantage of federal tax law and allows an organization, if they're provided state ordinance authority, to authorize them to impose upon businesses of greater than 50 individuals certain kinds of commuter benefits, transit passes, parking passes, things like that. And if this were to move forward, it would probably necessarily require collaboration and cooperation with the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District, because historically they've been involved in those kind of activities around the state. Finally, there is legislation we'll be working on in conjunction with the Transit Association, the bus on shoulder authorization that was mentioned earlier, and that brings it to a close. I'd be happy to take questions.
Any questions? Yes, Vice Chair Hanson.
Mark, you may have said it and I missed it, but there was an SCA to reduce the threshold on voter-approved sales taxes for transportation and transit projects. What's your analysis of where that stands in this session?
So this session, the first constitutional amendment out the door by Aguirre Curry is ACA 1. It's not quite as directly on point as Senator Wiener's SCA 6. I believe it would cover transportation or transit facilities. It does basically two key things. It authorizes cities and counties to have a 55% voter threshold for bonded indebtedness, or for the tax, the ad valorem tax in support of bonded indebtedness. So that's one item. The second item is on transportation, sales and use taxes. It allows a 55% voter threshold for approval at the ballot for infrastructure improvements or affordable housing. So I think transportation falls into that. I believe, in talking to her staff and in talking to some other members, I believe it's a nice starting point, and there's going to be a lot of dialogue moving forward. So to the extent the board would be interested in engaging, I think that's the vehicle. I don't think anybody else is going to introduce a different vehicle this year.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Chair Kennedy and members of the board. I'm Julie Adair Minerva. I'm a partner at Carpy & Clay, and here with Jeff Booth from InfraStrategies, we are your Washington-based federal advocacy team. It's very nice to be here this evening. You're helping us to avoid the snow in Washington. But on a personal note, I grew up in Auburn, so it's always nice to get back and see my family while I'm here. Shutdown aside, we're going to give you an update on what's happening in Washington, as well as an outlook for the 116th Congress, and also focus in on some of RT's priorities in terms of both projects and policies. So I'll kick this off and hand it off to Jeff. I want to start out by just saying how well positioned your congressional delegation is from both a House and a Senate perspective. Over the years, they really have built the necessary relationships to move projects forward, even with an administration that's not exactly transit friendly. So we'll continue to work with them on that. Having the House now under Democratic control certainly helps from a leveraging perspective from Congresswoman Matsui and what she's working to accomplish. She has very deep ties with Chairman DeFazio, who is the new chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Keep in mind that early in her congressional career, she did serve on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, so she got to know DeFazio quite well. He will probably be making a swing through California at some point to look at infrastructure priorities, so if we can get him to Sacramento, we absolutely will do that. So that's what we've got going on from a broader perspective. Of course, the House is still working on organizational activities for the 116th Congress. They just have really gotten started in the last week or so with the Tier 1 committee. So that was assigning new California members to House Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce, as well as Appropriations. So we still don't know where the new 7 California freshmen will fall, and we'll know that mostly by the end of this month. But with that backdrop, the bipartisan 2-year budget deal that Congress was successful in passing in early 2018 really set the stage for a good infrastructure Congress. So while we did not move forward with a bigger infrastructure package, Congress, through the appropriations process, did really provide robust funding for a lot of the programs that support SAC-RT and things like the Capital Investment Grant Program. So because of that 2-year bipartisan budget deal, we we have really strong numbers that are pending in the FY19 appropriations bill. And as you know, that's part of the source of the hang-up with the shutdown. But should we be able to move forward and pass these final FY19 appropriations bills, we do see good things in there for transportation. And just to give you some idea on those funding levels, we've got pending $2.553 billion for the Capital Investment Grant Program. That is an increase of the $2.3 billion that is authorized in the FAST Act. There's roughly $1 billion in there for competitive grants under both build and infra, and then also about $800 million for FTA formula funds and discretionary grant programs for bus and bus facilities. So there are some really good things that we just need to see Congress finalize their work on FY19 on. So with that, I'm going to let Jeff talk a little bit about projects.
Now, one thing Julie failed to mention is that we actually worked together at a previous firm. So I've known Julie for a long time, and we've worked together very closely. Okay. Guess you're not supposed to talk about age, okay? But so we've known each other for a long time, and we've worked together for a long time. And so we come to you having really developed a good working relationship. And so we're pretty seamless between the two of us in terms of the way that we work together. Certainly my focus is the Capital Investment Grants Program, and it has been for many, many, many years. And the last 2 years, we've spent a great deal of time battling this administration over trying to get both the funding, which we were successful in doing, as Joey mentioned, but also moving projects forward. And so I wish I could report better progress on that. We've seen a number of small start projects go to grant agreement. We've only seen a core capacity project in California, the electrification project in the Bay Area, and we saw the Purple Line in Maryland, but we've not. And then we saw the Orange Line streetcar project go forward in Santa Ana, but those are the only major projects that have gone forward. Otherwise, they're all bus rapid transit projects or commuter rail extension projects in the Small Starts program. So what you see if you look at the numbers in fiscal year 17 is that they have allocated all of the monies, but allocation is not obligation. Obligation is when you actually go to a grant agreement for projects. So we see several projects that have monies allocated, but they have yet to go to grant agreement. And there's some fairly large New Start projects that have not gotten a grant agreement. And then for fiscal year 18, and they're under some deadlines to obligate those monies. And so of the FY17 monies, 85% must be obligated by the end of this year, and 100% must be obligated by September 30th of next year. So they are under the gun to try to get to grant agreement for several of those projects. And then for fiscal year 18, we have a lot of monies that were appropriated by Congress that have not yet been even allocated, let alone gone to obligation. And so I think one of the things we're going to see in this Congress is oversight hearings, particularly from the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee and the Appropriations Committee, who sent out a questionnaire to project sponsors about their experience working through the Capital Investment Grants Program. And so I think we're going to see both the DOT Secretary and the FTA Acting Administrator coming before the committees to answer questions about how they've managed the program, because there's a lot of frustration on Capitol Hill with the FTA current management of the program and erection of barriers that make it difficult for projects to go forward and delay projects that then results in cost increases due to those delays. And so there's a lot of concern about that. And as Julie mentioned, when we get around to FY19, we're going to see a fairly healthy FY19 number. And so I think the good news of what this administration has done, I'm trying to find the silver lining, the good news is they've actually united Republicans and Democrats on the Hill in a way that I've never seen in all the years I've worked on the Capital Investment Grants Program, where we have a tremendous amount of Republican support for the program in a way that maybe we hadn't realized before, but we've seen a lot of Republicans step up and advocate for the program in a way that's not been true. And so I think that's a very positive thing. It's been a very positive development in our relationship with folks on Capitol Hill, that they're seeing bipartisan support for moving the program forward. Julie?
So looking forward, this Congress has a lot of work to do. First of all, we have to get the government up and running again, but once that happens, like I said, they will finalize the FY19 appropriations bills, and we will be keeping an eye out for all of those grant opportunities that will be forthcoming. But they also need to get started on the FY20 appropriations process. We are expecting to see a delay from the administration in that release, and when it comes out, I do think we're also going to have about a 5% reduction across the board in that budget. So that's going to make it harder for Congress to start out and work on this, but we do have very strong support within Congress, particularly with Nita Lowey, who is the new chair of the House Appropriations Committee, for things like CIG and bus facilities programs. They are also considering a return to earmarks. That is a discussion that the Democrats need to have. It was not a part of the Democrats' rule package the way it was for the Republicans in the House, so they have not had to formally make any decisions on that, but it likely will be the FY20 appropriations process that could return earmarks to some degree. We are also hearing from Chairman DeFazio quite a bit that he would like to see earmarks as a part of his infrastructure package, and so that's really where the conversation is going, and we will keep you updated. But what we're really doing right now is trying to survey the landscape to see if earmarks come back, what will we be asking for, and how can we leverage those funding opportunities. Also, you've heard this Congress talk quite a bit about an infrastructure package, and that's something that we're going to have a lot of hearings on this year. They really want to get to some of the tough questions about the solvency of the Highway Trust Fund and some other mechanisms, so that next year, when the FAST Act expires, and the FAST Act is a 5-year authorization bill that really covers highways and transit, when we get to that, we've solved the funding levels and we can really focus on programs and other funding opportunities. So Jeff and I will be hard at work on your priorities. We love it when you come to DC and you engage. We know that those are really long days, doing lots of meetings, but it really does make the difference, and so we look forward to seeing you back in DC. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks. Enjoy our weather.
That's your report. Okay, we do have 2 cards. Mike Barnbaum.
Thank you, President and Chair Kennedy. Members of the board.
This gets better.
Yes. I wanted to speak to and piggyback the question brought up by Director Hanson on the state legislative advocacy report. And I know that Mark is not in the room any longer this evening, but ACA 1 is going to be a very important bill going forward, and I think it would be great to have the board, and just at subsequent board meetings, the board be engaged on ACA 1 and the progress and the hearings going on with that. Very interesting by Mark brought up that the Assembly is 60-20 Democrat Republican, and the Senate is right now 29-11. Interesting, though, Mark did not bring up the vacancy by Assembly Member Gaines going to the Board of Equalization. Kevin Kiley, I think is how you pronounce it, is running for that seat, and potentially, if that does become successful, I've been told former Folsom Mayor Steve Miklos might be running for the Assembly seat, and has very much been a proponent of what the SACOG region is doing in terms of transportation, and would love to carry and co-author, if he does get that Assembly seat, some of, if not all, the bills on transportation to help and assist region-wide to improve the transportation picture. So that's what I had wanted to address on the state legislative side. Not only am I watching ACA 1 very closely, but I'm also watching AB 7 very closely. That's an Assembly bill by Member Chu. Following the successful passage of Proposition 7 on the November ballot, Chu's bill would ultimately forward and get permission from Congress to make California a state on permanent daylight saving time. So when the state does change in the middle of the night on March 10th at 1:59 a.m. to make it 3 a.m., that could possibly be the last time California might be changing their clocks, but that's a wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jeffrey Tardigia.
Chairman Patrick, there is this coming Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning is when the Senate will be doing a review of the budget. The PPIC will be doing a webinar at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you hook in, you will also find there is the other legislators. There's going to be a conversation taking place of one of the I think it's the Assembly Speaker, Renton, will be just a heads up, a flash to you is what's going on in our state. And since SACOG is wanting to push dealing with greater air standards, because that is a push in the region, I also invite you to say that for RT is please look at the accessibility, because it's clear right now that electronically wise and for the autonomous, there has not been a greater emphasis on dealing with accessibility. I would encourage, I think we've made some efforts, but I would encourage with the new team that you see what needs to be worked on through there. And to Henry, I thank you for sending. It was James Drake that went to the ECOS on the ACC. I don't know that there was much to be learned, but he, I believe, heard some new additional public input. And because those standards are pushing a lot of the electronic and electrical infrastructure, important. I hope that we will see something happening with I-80. I really hope that that south side elevator gets torn down in process and something get figured out temporarily wise until we can figure out what is going to happen with that. But there's many other changes this year. The public input that needs to get out there, I would offer the next bit of encouragement is where you're anticipating routes being lost, that talk with the libraries, talk with the city halls, because I have not seen enough of that material in Citrus Heights. Pat, you can tell me whether in Oak Grove you have all the material about what's going on with route optimization, but it's only really that I believe Consumnes College needs that focus down in your region. But I don't know that the material has been sitting out there and the new semester is about to start up. So please, that material you've done some great marketing efforts. I'd like to see them encouraged.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add two information. Thanks to Jeff's recommendation. We add 7 more outreach events in next 1 or 2 weeks. And in the meantime, we will continue to say if there are any other places we need to reach out. 2 events our chair went to and gave us some wonderful feedback. Really appreciate that. You talk about electric buses initiative. I just want to give board and the public update. Yesterday, I signed an electric document with EA, Electrify America, for 12 electric big buses. And we're supposed to get that by the end of this current year. So that's 12 buses. And we have 6 small electric buses on the way to our campus in February. And also, we are expecting another 10 electric small buses on the way this year. So we are making some very aggressive and wonderful progress on that. Just wanted to give a quick update on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Jeffrey. Any questions? All right, thank you. On reports, ideas, questions from directors, I will start by saying we have a number of appointments to be made to the Retirement Board, Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority, the Sacramento-Placerville Transportation Corridor Joint Power Authority, Paratransit Board of Directors, the Downtown Riverfront Streetcar Project Policy Steering Committee, and the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. If you members are on those committees currently and you would like to not continue to serve on those committees, please let Cindy know, and we can make changes. So, next item.
Okay, unless there's any members,
there
other
any other-
members?
Nope.
I just want to thank everybody for the warm welcome tonight. I'm looking forward to working with the board. And
It goes downhill from there.
Yeah, that's don't get used to it.
And I'd also like to let President Kennedy know that I already serve on that Sacramento Placerville Rail JPA representing the city of Folsom.
Okay, great.
And I have been there for 20 years. So
Okay.
Okay, with that said, the board will recess to closed session, and I'll read the item. Item A, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, District Negotiator Stephen Booth, Employee Organization ATU, and the board will now recess upstairs.
Carrie, did you say 2-0?